Robin Hood Radio presents Stage Right or Not with Michele Willens. Michele is a longtime journalist and herself is a published playwright of several theatrical works. She's a frequent contributor to the Huffington Post, Daily Beast, and the Atlantic websites.
Another opening of another show.
Well, it is no surprise that musical revivals appear every season. The latest, and I expect most controversial West Side Story, starts previews soon. Tickets are not going so quickly, I hear. On the other hand, tickets are selling well for The Music Man heading to River City, as in Broadway's River City, with Hugh Jackman in what seems like a tailor-made role. Well, that one does not open until next fall, keep in mind. Company re-arrives this season, albeit with a commitment-phobe female in the leading role. Now, not all of these reimaginings, by the way, land on Broadway, at least not right away. Oklahoma started in Brooklyn before moving upward, where it won the Tony, and is, by the way, soon to close. And now at the 200-plus seat West Side Arts Theater on West 43rd, The Little Shop of Horrors has made its first return in many years. With three big names in the lead roles, the musical has performed so well that it's been extended for several more months. I caught the show, which first sprouted in 1982, recently, and while it is not one of my favorites, this is probably as classy a production as humanly possible. The role of the lovably nerdy and lovesick Seymour is being portrayed, at least for the near future, by Jonathan Groff. His leading lady, Audrey, is portrayed by Tammy Blanchard, and perhaps most notably, playing at least four other characters, including the meanest dentist since Laurence Olivier treated Dustin Hoffman, are played by Christian Borle. Basically, everything that man does is hilariously memorable. The ticket buyers here seem to be devoted fans, not just of the stars, but of the show itself, which is about a suffering floral shop on Skid Row. Well, at least until equally suffering Seymour invests in a little plant that, as most of us know by now, grows into a monstrous character of its own. Seymour and Audrey, too, as the plant is named, become media stars of sorts. And while Audrey, one, finally tries to find the courage to stand up to her abusive boyfriend. "Hi, Audrey," says Seymour in his opening line. "You look radiant today. Is that new makeup?" Nothing has changed, by the way, regarding Audrey's unpleasant relationship, despite these Me Too times. All in all, this is a campy 2 hours of fun. I had forgotten how many songs I recognized, from the title one, sung by a wonderful trio of supreme-like young ladies, to Somewhere That's Green, Suddenly Seymour, and others. But then the composer and lyricist turned out to be Howard Ashman and Alan Menken, who went on to huge careers. So lots of stellar names in this production, including the director, Michael Mayer. Will this latest Little Shop transfer to Broadway? I think not. It started off Broadway like this, had a poorly received 2003 on-Broadway attempt, and well, small is really where it fits best. And now, speaking of small, enjoying my off-the-main drag week, I also visited the Cherry Lane Theater in the West Village. There I saw stand-up-actress-writer Judy Gold answer 25 questions for a Jewish mother. Yes, that's the title of this 90-minute memoir of sorts. I don't know what can be said that's new about Jewish mothers. It seems we've seen 800 versions over the years, and many of us turned into them. But Judy Gold is funny, and she clearly has her fans. Her life has not been uncomplicated, it turns out. Married to one woman for 17 years, and they adopted 2 children. Then that relationship ended, and she's been with another woman for the past 13. She broke the news of her sexuality to her mother at a Shabbat dinner. And one of her partner's mothers unsubtly noted, "I don't care that my daughter's a lesbian, I just hate Judy." This show is obviously not everyone's cup of Manischewitz, but the audience knows what they will get, and they seem deliriously happy and grateful as they exit. Finally, I have spoken often about how fascinated I am with the process of getting a play up on a stage, whatever its size or locale, which is why I often find myself at early readings when the playwright is able to hear his or her words out loud and judge the reactions, not to mention seek support of all kinds. Now, these too come in all sizes, and in the last few weeks, I happened to attend 3 readings. The furthest along, so to speak, is called Harmony. I think I might have mentioned that here before. It already has a booking at the Museum of Jewish Heritage downtown and has had 3 out-of-town productions, likely because of the music, which is done by Barry Manilow. But clearly the show is still being tested and tweaked. The reading I saw was done in a lovely large venue with a small band and more than a dozen performers. It's a touching and true story about a singing group facing anti-Semitism as Hitler is rising. It's not all there yet, or more accurately, too much is there. But again, that's the point of these readings. As always, with very little previous rehearsals, the actors-singers were first rate. My second reading was for a piece called Up and Down, written by Stephen Lloyd Helper. That was done in a rented small rehearsal space, Midtown. This is a rather touching story of a man mourning his wife who's in a coma. I know, it sounds sad, but there is also nice humor. And when he leaves the room, we hear from the comatose woman herself. Again, I was mostly impressed with the talent. The major role of the husband was played by Robert Creighton. He played James Cagney in the musical Cagney, which had a nice run here. And the role of the nurse in the hospital was read by Isabella Rossellini, no slouch herself. She said she was sent the script, found it moving and hopeful, and worth the drive in from her home on Long Island. My last reading was at a beautiful apartment on the Upper West Side, and it was a piece by Alice Scovell called The Rewards of Being Frank. She has taken on the rather daunting challenge of imagining where the main characters of Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest would be 7 years later. The 6 actors, once again, were impeccable. This was their first time reading together. They've all done a lot of work, including in the Wilde original, and their British accents could have fooled anyone. The piece is witty and even wise, and while it has a road ahead, there already seems to be interest. So those are a few titles we can all keep an eye on. Another one, by the way, is called Dear Jack, Dear Louise. I caught this full production this past week at the Arena Theater in Washington. The two-hander is noteworthy in that its playwright is Ken Ludwig of Lend Me a Tenor fame. It's a two-hander consisting of letters penned back and forth between 1942 and 1945. Yes, the war years. What makes it somewhat above the ordinary is that it is the true story of Ludwig's parents, who fell in love through correspondence, even before ever meeting in person, which they did, in Times Square on VE Day. Well, I'm a big fan of penned correspondence, not to mention World War II anything, so I had a pleasant experience. And it has been a while since I was the youngest person in a theater. Hey, it was a matinee about World War II and about that quaint thing we used to do called writing letters. Well, I could surely see this one moving to other small venues around the country, off Broadway for starters. So it was a week, Jill, filled of things old and new and old again.
Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. Tell me again about West Side Story, or tell us again about you.
This is some gossip I heard, and I must say, when I was sitting in one of the readings, I happened to be sitting with, people who kind of know theater world and what's selling and what isn't. And I heard them talking about West Side Story, and I said, "What did you say about that?" And they said the ticket sales are very slow. Some people are afraid of that director. He's not my favorite, Iva von Hove. On the other hand, he always does something very radical and can be very interesting. There's apparently controversy. Well, he changed the choreography. That's another thing. Apparently,
Is that a legal issue?
That's an issue. And they said there's one particular number that has been taken out. I hate to even say this because I'm just hearing this through gossip. One ballet number that has been totally erased. This is kind of the scuttlebutt you hear among theater people, but they tend to know what's going on in their community. So I found that interesting that, Music Man is selling like crazy, and it's a year away, and there seems to be some skepticism about this West Side Story. There are a lot of commercials. They're doing a lot of advertising, which are odd also.
It's awfully early, no? Well, I just old thing, and this may not hold true any longer. But whenever you're driving back and forth from here to there, whenever you start hearing adverts on the The radio, it was a sure sign. It just like the colored leaves are a sign of autumn. It was a sure sign of slowing sales and
They have to take to the radio, yeah.
yeah, ultimate.
Well,
You could sort of tell that once that started,
yeah.
soon you were going to hear that it was not going to be around any longer or much longer or something like that.
Yeah, I'm interested. Actually, I have friends who are in town this week, and I think they are going to see it. It would be an early preview of it. It's just starting previews right now, so it'll be fun to get a sense of it.
When does it open?
I don't think it opens till January, a couple
Okay.
weeks in January. So they're doing a full, 5 or 6 weeks of previews. But again, for most people who are in New York at Christmas, they don't live here, and if they can see West Side Story, if they want to see West Side
No,
Story, they don't.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
they care if it's in previews.
And then, and conversely, the Music Man, which has as I pointed out last week, and I hope you had a chance to look, just a very entertaining website.
Yeah.
It's just very clever, well designed. Just if you were going to have a website, this is what you would want it to look like.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I also saw an ad for that on TV today, which is beautiful. It looks very old-fashioned, very much of the time.
But
The thing I still want to know with these plays, and I guess I keep talking about it, is how much they're allowed to change. Oklahoma, you're not allowed to change one word. I assume it. I just don't know with West Side Story. Tony Kushner is doing a film adaptation. This one's coming up. They obviously are allowed to play with the choreographer because they both brought in new choreographers, the film and the show. I just don't know in terms of the dialogue, and I keep meaning to find out. It shouldn't be that hard to find out. You can have different people. Clearly, they're both going to have non-Caucasians playing those sharks, and that's fine. They did that the last time I saw it on Broadway, by the way. So that's not entirely new. But I think with West Side Story, they're using very young actors, like right out of school actors. And maybe that's the way this guy sees it. These were gangs, the Sharks and the Jets. They were gangs. They were young gangs. And they were in high school. Remember the dance at the gym? So, listen, everybody is allowed to do what they want, unless they're not allowed to do what they want. But anyway, it looks like an interesting couple months coming up.
Stage Right or Not with Michele Willens, produced in the studios of Robin Hood Radio, robinhoodradio.com.